a snack because this is going to be a long one. 안녕하세요 여러분, it's your Korean Saem, and today I'm finally tackling the notorious 은는 이가 topic markers and subject markers. This is a very confusing topic for Korean learners of all levels. I feel like it's a rite of passage as a Korean language YouTuber. Like, there are so many great videos on this topic out there, but I thought I would just put my own little spin on it. But before we begin, I just want to briefly touch on why I think this is such a confusing topic. There are a couple reasons. The first reason is I think it's somewhat interchangeable. Like, they can both come after the subject of a sentence, and both sentences will make sense, but they will mean something different because Korean is a very contextual language. Context, nuance, all these little subtle differences, they really change the sentence. Another reason I feel like this topic is confusing is that oftentimes when you hear Koreans speaking in conversation, a lot of the times these particles are omitted altogether. So much so that sometimes when I think, okay, is 은는 or 이가 more natural? Sometimes I can't even decide because they both sound awkward, and it just sounds better to like omit the particle altogether. But that's not to say that you should build a habit of omitting particles, because a lot of times the particles are necessary. So first, it's best to familiarize yourself with using these particles, and then once your Korean kind of advances, you can kind of learn when it's okay to drop these particles. But unless that's the case, I think it's a very important topic that you should learn as best and as thoroughly as possible. Another reason I feel like this topic is difficult is because they're not really comparable. And what I mean by that is, it's kind of comparing apples and oranges. They're both fruits, they both go great in salads, they make yummy juices, but ultimately they're different fruits. And same goes for 은는 and 이가. They both come after a subject, sure, but their functions are completely different. The subject marker, it just marks the subject. And the topic marker, it's kind of vague. It's not just like, oh, this is the topic of the sentence. This 은는 comes after a bunch of different words and not just the subject to add emphasis or special meaning. So it's not like a grammatical function, if you know what I mean. So they're different in that way, which is why it's harder to really distinguish what the difference is between 은는 and 이가. But that's not to say the differences can't be explained. So that's what I'll be doing in this video. First of all, we're going to go over the technical differences. 은는 이가 sounds like 4 particles, but it's actually just 2. 은는 counts as 1 and 이가 counts as 1 as well. It all depends on whether it is coming after a vowel sound or a consonant sound. So let's first look at 은는, which is commonly called the topic marker. If a word ends in a 받침 or a consonant sound, then it is followed by 은. For example, 한국은, 가족은. And if the word ends in a vowel sound or has no 받침, then it is followed by 는. 우리는, 엄마는. Likewise for the subject marker 이 and 가. So if the word ends in a consonant or has a 받침, then it's followed by 이. So 한국이, 가족이. And then the consonant kind of carries over to the next syllable. And if the word doesn't have a 받침 or if it ends in a vowel sound, then it is followed by 가. So 우리가, 엄마가. And before I really get into the heart of this video, I just want to share a couple more quick tips. So these are contractions that are used a lot in conversation. So in casual speech, 는 often gets just contracted into a n, a nian, a n sound. So 나는 is often said as 난, 우리는 is often said as 우린, 엄마는, 엄만, etc., etc. And in regards to 가, the subject marker, when it comes after 나 and 저, which are both different forms of saying me, this spelling changes a bit. So instead of 나가, it would become 내가. And instead of 저가, we'll say 제가. So just keep these in mind. And now let's get down to business. I have divided this portion of the video into 6 categories, meaning there are 6 different ways in which 은는 and 이가 are different in terms of meaning and usage. Okay, let's not waste any more time because this video is going to get really long. The first difference between 은는 and 이가, so 은는 is usually used when the subject has already been introduced in a previous sentence, whereas 이가 is used for introducing new information. Let's look at this example. 연필이 책상 위에 있어요. 연필이 책상 위에 있어요. 연필이. So I'm introducing this pencil for the first time. We weren't talking about this pencil. I just noticed for the first time that there is a pencil on that desk. 연필이 책상 위에 있어요. Or it can be a situation like, hey, if you go into that room, there's a pencil on the desk. You didn't know about this pencil, but I'm telling you there's a pencil on that desk. Can you get it for me? Something like that. So we didn't know about this pencil. Or we can look at this example. 이름이 뭐예요? I'm asking you for your name. And we weren't talking about names in the first place. This is new information, so I use 이. 이름이 뭐예요? Now let's switch the subject markers and see how it changes the meaning of the sentence. 연필은 책상 위에 있어요. If I say 연필은 책상 위에 있어요, it means the pencil was mentioned beforehand and we're talking about the pencil. So while we're on the subject of the pencil, where is that pencil? So both of us know which pencil we're talking about. 연필. 그 연필은 책상 위에 있어요. So the subject of that sentence has been mentioned before and both the speaker and the listener know about this pencil. That's when you would use 은. And contrast to 이름이 뭐예요? When you answer, you would say 제 이름은 샘물이에요. That subject of the sentence, which is the name, my name is, that subject has been mentioned before when you asked me about it. So this subject is not new information. I'm just elaborating on this subject that's been mentioned before already. So I would say 제 이름은 샘물이에요. So quick recap. Has the subject been mentioned before? Do we both know what this subject is? Have we talked about it already? If yes, usually it's 은는. And if not, if you're introducing the subject for the first time, then it's common to use 이가. The second difference between 은는 and 이가 is that for 은는, the focus is on the predicate, whereas for 이가, the focus is on the subject. Now, what is a predicate? Every sentence has a subject and a predicate. The subject is what the sentence is about, and the predicate gives information on that subject. So for example, apples are red. Apple is the subject and are red would be the predicate of the sentence. Now, for 은는, as I mentioned before, it's a subject that we already know about, and I'm just providing additional information on said subject. So think of it as a response to questions like, what about subject? How about subject? And the response would be, as for this, blah, blah, blah. So the predicate is the main focus of this sentence. Let's look at a couple examples. 저는 샘물이고 이쪽은 제 어머니예요. So I'm 샘물 and this here is my mother. So in this sentence, the focus is on the fact that I'm 샘물 and that this here is my mother. So think of it as a response to who are you and who is this person next to you. I'm answering that. So me, I'm 샘물. 저는 샘물이에요. 저는 샘물이고 이쪽은 who is this? 이쪽은 제 어머니예요. As opposed to 이가 when the focus is on the subject of the sentence. So for 이가, think of it as a response to who is predicate. What is the predicate? So if I say 제가 샘물이고 이쪽이 제 어머니예요. If I use 이가 instead of 은는, it's like someone asked, which one of you is 샘물 and which one is the mother? So the predicate is already known. I just want to know the subject. The emphasis is on the subject. 제가 샘물이에요. Me, I'm the one who's 샘물. 이쪽이 제 어머니예요. This one is the mother, not me. She's the mother, and I'm the one who's 샘물. If that's still a bit vague, let's look at two more examples. So let's say there was some sort of competition and Younghee won third place. There are two ways that you can say Younghee won third place. 영희는 3등 했어요. Or 영희가 3등 했어요. Both are grammatical sentences, but the meaning is subtly different. 영희는 3등 했어요. As I said, for 는, the focus is on the predicate. So the fact that she won third place is the focus of the sentence. 영희는 3등 했어요. So this would be in response to a question like, 영희는 몇 등 했어요? So we know all about 영희. I'm asking about 영희. What about 영희? How did she do? Then I would respond, 영희는 3등 했어요. Whereas for 영희가 3등 했어요, the question is, who won third place? We already know about the predicate, and now the focus is on the subject. So who won third place? 영희가 3등 했어요. 샘물이가 아니고 영희가 3등 했어요. So the emphasis is on the subject. 영희 is the one who won third place, not anyone else. And we'll look at one last example. So the English sentence is, I'll do the cleaning. 청소, I'll do the cleaning. So again, there are two ways you can say this. 저는 청소할게요. Or 제가 청소할게요. Both sentences mean I'll do the cleaning, but again, the difference is in where the emphasis is placed. So, 저는 청소할게요. This would be in response to, so what are you gonna do? So we have a bunch of household chores. What are you gonna do? 저는 청소할게요. I think I'll do the cleaning. I don't want to do the dishes. I want to do the cleaning. I'll do the cleaning. 저는 청소할게요. Whereas if I say 제가 청소할게요, 제가 청소할게요, it means I'll do the cleaning, but in response to, who's gonna do the cleaning? So cleaning is already established as the predicate, and I want to know the subject. So who's gonna do the cleaning? And if I say 제가 청소할게요, 제가 할게요, I'll do the cleaning, not you. Don't do it, I'll do it. I'll do the cleaning. So the focus is on the subject, me. 제가 청소할게요. Okay, that's the difference between 저는 and 제가. So I hope these three examples clarify. If you use 은는, we're talking about the subject, but the focus is on the predicate. And when you use 이가, then we already kind of know what the predicate is, and we just want to focus on the subject. So that is the second way in which 은는 and 이가 are different. Now let's look at the third difference. So the topic markers 은는 are used for contrast, whereas 이가 is not. So let's look at this example. 저는 피자를 좋아하고 오빠는 햄버거를 좋아해요. So I like pizza and my brother likes hamburgers. So when you're making comparisons like this, you use 은는. If you use 이가, it sounds a bit awkward. 제가 피자를 좋아하고 오빠가 햄버거를 좋아해요. It's not an incorrect sentence, but we're not really like comparing me and my brother. If I said 제가 피자를 좋아하고 오빠가 햄버거를 좋아해요, maybe someone got confused and thought I like hamburgers and my brother likes pizza, and I want to make a correction. No, I'm the one who likes pizza. 제가 피자를 좋아하고 오빠가 햄버거를 좋아해요. So if I want to emphasize the subject, then yes, I can use 이가. But if I'm just giving information, making comparisons, then 은는 is the way to go. The fourth difference in meaning between 은는 and 이가 is that 은는 can be used for general or universal truths. So let's look at these two examples. 사람은 모두 죽어요. People all die. That's a universal truth. Or 인생은 짧아요. Life is short. Whereas 이가 is not so much used for general statements or universal truths. Meaning-wise, now that we've got 4 differences between 은는 and 이가, if it's not one of these 4 usages for 은는, then most likely it's going to be 이가. Okay, then let's move on to numbers 5 and 6. This, in my opinion, is a very important distinction between 은는 and 이가. And that is, 이가 can only come after the subject of the sentence because it's a subject marker. It only works to assign grammatical value to that sentence. This is the subject of the sentence. That's what 이가 does. But for 은는, it's not the case. It can come after the subject. It can come after the object. It can come after adverbs. It can even come after other particles and endings. It can jump around anywhere in the sentence and just add emphasis or special meaning to it. So it doesn't just come after the subject of the sentence. So this is more a lesson on just 은는 in general instead of comparing it to 이가, but I think it's still important to know that this is why it's hard to compare 은는 and 이가. So 은는 can come after a subject in a sentence, and when it does, it will be for reasons 1 through 4 we just discussed in this video. But it can also come after objects. So for example, 저는 피아노를 칠 줄 알아요. I can play the piano. So 피아노를, the object marker comes after piano because piano is the object. But you can also replace this object marker with 는. 피아노는 칠 줄 알아요. It means you're placing emphasis on the piano. So in English, it would be like, I can play piano. I mean, I can play piano, but I can't really play anything else. Let's see an example where it's used after an adverb. 제가 빨리 못 뛰어요. 제가 빨리 못 뛰어요. I can't run fast. If I say 제가 빨리는 못 뛰어요. 빨리는, then it means I can't run that fast. Like I can run, technically, but not very fast. And lastly, this 은는 can come after other particles. So let's look at this example. 그 영화가 재미있지 않아요. 재미있지 않아요. 재미없어요. That's what it means, but just for the sake of an example. 그 영화가 재미있지 않아요. So it's not fun. But if I add a 는, 그 영화가 재밌지는 않아요. I'm adding emphasis to that 재밌다. 재밌지는 않아요. It's not that fun. So instead of just saying that movie's no fun, it's like it's not fun, but it's educational. You know, it has some other redeeming factor. It's not bad. It's not fun, but it's alright. So that's kind of the nuance you get from this sentence. 그 영화가 재밌지는 않아요. This kind of reinforces the difference number 3 when we're using it for contrast. So, it's not fun, but it's okay in some other way. And our last example would be 실내에서 신발을 벗어주세요. 실내에서 신발을 벗어주세요. Please take your shoes off indoors. That makes sense. But if I say 실내에서는 신발을 벗어주세요, it means when you're indoors. So the emphasis is placed indoors and it comes after 에서. 에서 is already like a particle that is modified by 은는. So 실내에서는 신발을 벗어주세요. That's more like emphasis. So when you're indoors, when you're anywhere else, it's okay, but when you're indoors, please take your shoes off. So all of these examples that I just gave you, where it comes after a subject or an adverb or a different ending, 은는 works in all of these cases, but 이가 would never work for any of these cases. And lastly, let's look at the 6th difference between 은는 and 이가. So this is more of a technical restriction, and I'd say this is a bit more advanced, but when we are looking at embedded sentences, so when we have a clause within a clause, then the subject in that embedded clause can only be modified by 이 or 가, the subject marker. So if you didn't learn embedded sentences yet, I think you can skip over this part. But if you did, let's look at this example. 딸기는 과일이에요. Simple sentence. Strawberry is a fruit. 딸기는 과일이에요. Now, I want to say that strawberry is a fruit that I like. I like. That's another clause that gets embedded into this sentence. 딸기는 제가 좋아하는 과일이에요. So 제가 좋아하다. That, I inserted that into the sentence. So I cannot say 딸기는 저는 좋아하는 과일이에요. When we're talking about a clause within another clause, embedded clauses, 은는 does not get used. We only use 이가. So we went through the 6 differences between 은는 and 이가. I'm going to give you a few practice sentences. Alright, that's all I have for this video. I hope this helped and clarified in some way. I know this is a very difficult subject to master and it's not going to just, click overnight, but with consistent practice and if you just expose yourself to a lot more sentences and see how these particles are used in action, you will get used to them and it will get easier over time, I promise. And if that's not the case, then come back to this video, take notes, and hopefully you'll get the hang of it soon. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one. 다음 영상에서 만나요.